I speak to you as a Jew with family members who perished in the Holocaust, and that context gives us perspective today. Everything that the Nazis did to persecute Jews and other vulnerable minorities was legal. Over 400 laws were passed and enforced by judiciaries in Germany and in Nazi-occupied countries. After World War II, there were tribunals to prosecute German leaders for crimes. Included among these Nuremberg trials was trial number 3, the Justice case. The defendants were jurists and lawyers in Germany's highest courts. The prosecutors charged them with, quote, judicial murder committed by destroying law and justice in Germany and utilizing the legal process for extermination. In describing these crimes, Chief Prosecution Counsel Telford Taylor remarked, the dagger of the assassin was concealed beneath the robe of the jurist. Judges could have challenged the hundreds of laws. Instead, over the 12 years of Nazi rule, only 3 judges resigned, and not one was dismissed because of refusing to support Nazi ideology. In 1935, Jews were stripped of their citizenship, rendering them stateless. This deprived them of all rights and paved the way for their murders. I want to focus on India's Citizenship Amendment Act and the National Registry of Citizens. These 2 policies violate international human rights laws and norms. India is subject to the standards in United Nations documents because India is a party to these covenants and declarations. So let's do a legal review of India's global commitments. January 1942, 47 countries, including India, signed the declaration by the United Nations that resulted in the UN Charter. In 1945, 50 nations adopted that charter. India is a founding member of the UN, and the UN Charter established a system for international peace, security, and promoted, and I quote, respect for human rights and for fundamental freedoms for all, without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion. India became a member of the first Commission on Human Rights, charged with drafting an international Bill of Rights. The UN document, ratified in 1948, was mentioned earlier. That is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the seed of international human rights law today. Article 18 states, everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, including the right to change his religion or belief, and freedom, either alone or in community, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. India was a member of the writing group for that document. The day before ratification of the Universal Declaration, the UN ratified the Genocide Convention, which criminalized genocide as killing, seriously injuring, or attempting to destroy a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. India ratified the Genocide Convention in 1959. The Genocide Convention was followed by the Geneva Convention that protects rights of civilians, including, quote, their religious convictions and practices. India ratified the Geneva Convention in 1950. It became the 5th country in the world to do so, and the 1st country in its region. In 1979, India ratified the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which affirms that everyone shall have the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. So India, in its past, has been a world leader in advocating for religious rights and religious freedom. And indeed, these rights are enshrined in Article 25 of India's constitution. I quote, "All persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and the right freely to profess, practice, and propagate religion." But let's look what has happened under the current practices. In 2019, the current government passed the Citizenship Amendment Act. It grants quick citizenship to people who have fled to India to escape religious persecution in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. This citizenship is only for refugees who are Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Parsis, and Christians. It excludes Muslims, including the Rohingya. On Monday, 2 days ago, Secretary of State Antony Blinken labeled the persecution of the Rohingya as genocide. In prohibiting sanctuary for the Rohingya, India is violating its obligations under international law pursuant to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. The Citizenship Amendment Act, as we have heard, has become a license for anti-Muslim violence with unparalleled mass protests and a nationwide crackdown. Dozens of people have been killed. Protesters from at least 18 human rights organizations have been imprisoned. UN human rights experts have raised concerns about the arrests and have urged release of the activists. The Citizenship Amendment Act was challenged on constitutional grounds. In March 2020, the Supreme Court responded. They stated that the law does not violate the Indian Constitution. I just quoted Article 25. The court justified the exclusion of Muslims, among other groups, stating that India could not be responsible for every persecuted community. Many people hoped that the Supreme Court, when faced with 143 challenges to the Citizenship Amendment Act, would order a temporary stay. The court did not. It has refused as well to hold hearings. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has requested to be made a party to the constitutional challenges to the law in the Supreme Court, and she has expressed her concern over its arbitrariness. So this is the first issue, tying citizenship directly to religious faith in a secular country and its support by the highest court in the land. The second issue is removing citizenship and voting rights from Muslims in Assam state. In Assam, a third of the 30 million residents are Muslims. In 2013, India's Supreme Court ordered Assam to conduct a national registry of citizens. The intent to identify and remove people defined as illegal immigrants. An illegal immigrant is, quote, anyone who cannot prove that they or their ancestors entered the country before March 24th, 1971. They will be declared a foreigner and face deportation, unquote. People whose names were not in earlier documents must prove their relationship with listed individuals. And appropriate proof includes land records, bank accounts, government documents, or similar certificates indicating that their ancestors lived in India before that 1971 date. How hard is this? Clerical errors, such as misspelled names, are common in Assam because a third of the population is unable to read. Births and marriages, in addition, often are not registered. The citizen list was released on August 31st, 2019. Nearly 2 million people were left off the registry. People who were excluded were given 120 days to prove their citizenship at foreigners' tribunals. These are judicial tribunals set up to designate people as foreigners. People are not rendered deportable just by being omitted from the registry. They can appeal to these tribunals. There were 36 tribunals. Today, there are more than 100. However, more than 120,000 cases are pending in foreigner tribunals as of December 31st, 2021. If petitioners are unhappy with the tribunal ruling, there are no appeals courts at that level. Amnesty International says that the tribunals are arbitrary. First, despite promises that alleged foreigners would get notice of being alleged of their exclusions, the tribunals are all ex parte. Decisions can be made without petitioners even being present. They may never receive notice from the court. They don't even know that they are being considered for deportation. Second, the judges presiding over the trials have testified that they are, quote, hired on contracts that aren't renewed if they don't brand enough people as foreigners. And then finally, the tribunals appear to discriminate. 9 out of 10 cases were against Muslims, and almost 90% of those Muslims were declared to be illegal immigrants. Foreigners can be held in one of Assam's detention centers. Until recently, they could be detained indefinitely. The Supreme Court now allows detainees who are interned more than 3 years to be released if they can pay a bond that is the equivalent of an average person's 3 years' salary. A Pan-India National Registry Act is now under consideration as well. The Citizenship Amendment Act and the National Registry of Citizens appear to intentionally exclude Muslims. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has labeled this fundamentally discriminatory. Without a nationality, a person has no right to have rights. In India today, the Indian judiciary is condemning several million Muslim people with no right to have rights. Thank you.